Morning, film fans. Today, in my ongoing review of bad 1980s science fiction movies, and believe me, there are a plethora of more of them, I want to talk about one of the worst and yet best and funniest of them, America 3000. This is an absolutely outrageous, hilarious, ridiculous, stupid, and yet often very funny movie written and directed by a guy named Dave Engelbach, and it was produced by Golan and Globus, who gave us some of the worst films of the 80s. They like to do action films, and they like to do low budget, really low budget science fiction. Though the budget on this was 1.3 million, which is not bad. It was produced by MGM, which is a major studio, so it's not a little nobody produced film. It's basically a story that's set 9 centuries after the nuclear war takes place. It's in the year 3000, and women are now in charge. Women are now known as Fraus, F-R-A-U-S, and men, for some reason, are called Plugots, and they never explain what the word Plugot means and why they're called Plugots. But they are basically slaves to these women who have a matriarchal society. And they're often captured and categorized into and branded into either machos, who are the workers, cedars, I don't think I have to explain what that is, and toys, who are castrata, just used for entertainment. It focuses on two of the captured youth, who are played by Chuck Wagner and William Wallace as Corvus. It's Chuck Wagner, and Gruss, G-R-U-S, played by William Wallace, and the Tiara, who's the head of this quote-unquote comb, which is known as the Comb of Frisco, though oddly it actually takes place in the outskirts of the ruins of Denver, Colorado, not San Francisco, but wants to use Corvus as a cedar for her daughter, Vina, who is played later by the beautiful Canadian actress Laureen Landon, a gorgeous blonde. And what happens is he escapes, and he starts a ruckus, and he doesn't want to be branded, so he steals a horse, and Gruss jumps up onto the horse, and they ride away into an area called the Contams, which the Fraus won't go into because apparently it's still radioactive, or it was radioactive, because obviously they live there and they don't die of radiation poisoning, so apparently the radioactivity is gone, but they have a bunch of skulls and things to keep people away. They set up their own comb, which is a village, and based on in a place called Camp Reagan, and one of the funniest lines in the movie is Gruss says, "I never could figure out what a Reagan was." I like that. A little bit of slash at Ronald Reagan's presidency. And all these people, both the Fraus and the Plugots, are waiting for the return of a mystical being only known as Mr. President, who is going to lead them to quote-unquote new tomorrow. Well, on one of these, Corvus and Gruss are planning to raid the Comb of Frisco after, in a raid by wild Plugots, the leader of the women, the Tiara, played by Carmilla Sparv, is killed. And so now she appoints Laureen Landon, Vina, to be her replacement Tiara, much to the disgruntlement of her sister, played by Victoria Barrett, who thinks she should be, her name is Michaela, thinks she should be the new Tiara, because she's stronger and more brutal than Vina, who has sort of a soft spot for some Plugots, apparently. Well, they have a elaborate funeral procession and light a funeral pyre for the Tiara, the old Tiara, Carmilla Sparv, and they set her on fire like a Viking funeral. And then they all get drunk and lay about, and they're all knocked out. So now Corvus figures this is a good time to do a raid, and they're going to free all of the quote-unquote machos and the men in the camp and bring them to this new comb, Camp Reagan, that they've set up. And they're also going to steal their food and weapons. So they go about on this raid. Everything almost goes well, except they stupidly decide to free this kind of Sasquatch-type mad mutant creature known as Arg the Awful, played by a guy named Steve Malefic, and he's hilarious. He does a great job. He doesn't talk. He just like growls and roars. And unfortunately, he sets off the alarm, and now the Fraus are after them, and they kill a bunch of them and chase them out of the camp. Corvus decides he's going to ride a horse off in the opposite direction of Regan to distract the Fraus, and Vina and her as escorts, chase him. He's got a second horse that looks like there are two people on horseback when he's actually just one. And he escapes eventually, climbs up onto a mountaintop, but they spot him, and for some reason, Lorraine Landon can't shoot him. Vina can't shoot him. Michaela does. And in the meantime, I forgot something. They're scrounging in the ruins, and they find a book of, an ABC book, which contains childish pictures and has pronunciation guides for words like man and horse, and very simple, something you give like a second or third grader. But they don't have that education, so to them it's kind of a revelation. Well, Michaela shoots Corvus, and he falls down into a hole. His life is saved by the fact that he was wearing this book under his shirt, and the crossbow bolt went into the book and not into his chest. Now he's underground somewhere. He doesn't know where he is. He's trying to figure out how to get out, and he stumbles across a secret nuclear bunker. And inside is like a skeleton sitting at a control panel. And then because he can read now, he reads a word that says arms. And he opens an arms locker and finds a laser rifle, which also has a very simplistic instruction guide. And again, because he can read, he says, "Oh, new book." And he reads it, and he reads how to turn it on, how to use it. And he shoots open the security lock of a vault that's meant for the president. He goes inside, and he's looking around. He sees some strange things. There's like a hologram of a city on the wall. And there's a globe, which he doesn't understand what that is, and Playboy magazines. And he's fooling around with this remote control, and the remote control turns on a video. The video is a last message from the president's military commander. He's saying, "Mr. President, we want to confirm that the missile launch that our satellites detected from the Soviet Union was false, and they didn't initiate a first strike, but we went ahead and retaliated anyway, and all of our ICBMs and cruise missiles have launched, and we've confirmed that the Soviets have launched a counterstrike, and now it's up to you, Mr. President, to lead us to the new tomorrow." And Corvus is going, "Mr. President, where's the president?" And he realizes that he thinks that the video is addressing him as the president. And so now he starts to take on the idea that, he's this mystical leader that's supposed to lead them into the new future. And he takes a radiation suit, he also finds a boombox, which at first scares the heck out of him because he can't figure out how to work it, and music's coming out and he wants it to stop, and then he figures out the knobs and the dials and how to turn it on, and now he likes it because it's playing rock music. And then he also takes a gold radiation suit with a helmet and this laser rifle, and rides back, and he finds some weapons too. He finds grenades, both smoke grenades and anti-personnel grenades, and he carries them on his extra horse and rides back to his comb with them. And he also finds a war comic that a skeleton at the controls was reading, and he takes the comic book also. That's important. I'll tell you why later. And he goes back to Camp Reagan and shows all these things to the Plugats there, who are trying to, they're trying to tame the machos into, they're giving them baths and shaving them and, turn them into men, as it were. And he says, Gross is saying we had a long way to go, but, they're training them eventually to be independent and not, act like slaves, which they've been their whole lives. And so they're looking. He shows them the laser rifle and how it works. And I forgot to mention, there's another character who's very funny. His name is Lels, and he's played by a guy named Sheikh Ophir. Unfortunately, he's a bit of a gay stereotype. He's sort of a mincing type. He is the leader of the quote-unquote toys, who the women only use for entertainment. And Gruss says, to make them quiet, they cut out their tongues, and to make him gentle, they cut off something else. You know what that is. And he is wandering in the desert looking for his toys, who they took with them. They had liberated them. And he runs across Corvus, who's now dressed in this radiation suit, and he starts calling him Mr. President. He said, "Don't hurt me, Mr. President." And he says, "Don't, I won't hurt you, but you have to promise not to tell anybody that you saw me, and I want you to go back to the comb and, wait for me, and, some good things will happen." And so he does, and, he leaves on his donkey and his cart and goes back to, meanwhile, another tiara from another comb known as the Comb of Kansas has arrived, and she's sort of a rival. She's played by a lady named Sue Gosha, and she's very beautiful. And all the women in this thing are really beautiful. If you like women with like big 80s hairs and big cleavage, you're going to get a lot of that in this movie. Amazingly, apparently 9 centuries after nuclear war, they still have hair care products and makeup and leather clothing things. So that look like it's designed by, Oleg Cassini or somebody. And I don't know how they have that, but, apparently they scrounged for it. So they go back, and again, this other tiara is kind of trying to stir up trouble. She wants Michaela to be the tiara, and is suggesting that she mount a raid on the Plugots and that she defy or challenge Vina for leadership, which apparently she does. Vina has discovered a map that her late mother, the old tiara, left, and the map is of the Contams, and she goes into the Contams and apparently finds something which she brings back, which are sort of homemade grenades. And she says, they say, "Oh, you found that?" She says, "No, I made them." And now, that gives her sort of a power, and she's now potentially able to challenge Michaela, because she has the greater weapon. And she says they're going to use them against the Plugots. In an attempt to kind of upend this plan, they capture another toy who's he's mute, but his name is Ami or Amy, and he has a plan, and apparently can convey it to them, that they take an extra radiation suit and stuff it with explosives, and through the boombox, which apparently has a microphone that can project into the helmet of the radiation suit, Corvus pretends to be this Mr. President, and he's shooting flares over the comb, and they're exploding, and everybody's freaking out. They don't know, the Fraus are frightened by these exploding flares, and then he gives them a message and says he wants to meet Vina alone. They kidnap her friend, who was about to be impregnated by a cedar, and they say, "If you come alone, we'll return her unharmed." And that's kind of a ploy to avoid this war that's coming with the Fraus. And Vina agrees to go out and meet him. He's honorable. He lets the girl go, and she says, "Yes, I wasn't harmed. Nobody touched me." And she goes back to the comb. Meanwhile, the Kansas lady has convinced Michaela to take these new weapons that Vina brought, the grenades, and go and raid and destroy the Plugots. Nuke the Plugots is what they say. They use the word nuke. They use a lot of funny words in this thing that they don't really explain. Things that are bad are called cold, and things that are good are called hot plastic. And how they know the term hot plastic, I don't know. And they also, when something's crazy, they say it's Wagos, and they never explain what the word Wagos means any more than they explain the term Plugot. But Vina goes out and rides and meets with the president. I think she thinks he's the president. He leads her down into the nuclear bunker and shows her things, shows her the hologram of the city, shows her the globe and a video game and Playboy magazine. And then he takes off his helmet and reveals that he's Corvus. And he says, "I'm a man." She says, "What's man?" He says, "I'm a man and you're a woman." And then they make love. And that pretty much changes everything. But meantime, Michaela and the Kansas Fraus have decided to attack the Plugots, and they ride out to Camp Reagan and start basically a war. They can't win because now the people have read the war comic and they understand how to use the grenades, and they're throwing them. And some of them are smoke grenades, but most of them are anti-personnel, and most of including the leader of the Tiara of Kansas, are killed, and most of her friends, and they do some damage with their own homemade grenades, and just by their combat skills, which are quite good. There's some really well choreographed fight scenes. There's also a funny bit where one of I think it's the second in command to the Tiara, is trying to kill Gruss, and she says, "Goodbye, Plugot," and like punches him and stabs him and kicks him, and he turns the tables on her and throws her, literally smashes her through a table and says, "Goodbye to you, Frau," which I thought was great. Arg the Awful is just going and growling in the background. He's wearing a helmet. How he got the combat helmet, I don't know, but he's smart enough that he knew how to put on a helmet. Ami is killed when one of these homemade grenades explodes before he gets to throw his grenade. Or mortally wounded, I should say. He's not outright killed. And then Corvus comes back after having, met with and made love to Vina, and thinks that she lied to him, realizes that the Frauls attacked while they were, having their quote-unquote conference. And he's going to go, and, Amy dies, and, Gruss is very upset because he was his friend. And then they decide they're going to go, and have retribution on them. And of course, they have advanced weapons. They've got the laser rifles from the military bunker, and they've got the grenades. They march down into the comb, and Vina comes out and holds her hands up and says, "This wasn't my doing, and it's never going to happen again." Corvus doesn't really trust her. He's pulled a knife on her, and then she says, "It's up to you to lead us to New Tomorrow if you really are the president." And she throws down her weapon, and then he hesitantly throws down his knife, and they start kissing. And people don't understand that there's no love in this society, so they don't understand, what they're doing. But they decide they're all going to throw down their weapons too, and they discharge their crossbows and throw down their weapons, their maces and hammers and whatever else they got. And eventually Gruss takes the laser rifle off of his shoulder and throws that down too, and they're going to, go into a new future. It's really silly. It's funny. It's well written. Apparently, it was funny. In a documentary about it in 2015, Lorraine Landon actually burned her only VHS copy of it. She said she hated doing it so much. She doesn't look like she hates. She looks like she's having a great time, like she's having a lot of fun doing it, which I'm sure she did at the time. I don't think you can kind of fake that. It has a lot of, like I said, a lot of great action scenes. Incredibly silly movie, but I recommend it. It's become something of a cult classic. The guy playing Arg the Awful, Steve Malevich, does a great job. He has the last scene where he's just holding up the boombox and growling, like he had triumph. Because again, now they're going to New Tomorrow. Really worth watching, and it's on Tubi right now for free.